Karna had waited his whole life to find out who his parents were. He had dreamt of being recognized as a Kshatriya for his accomplishments, for his talents. He had dreamt of being accepted. And when it's offered to him, he doesn't accept it. And so I spoke a little bit about this last week, that it's interesting that what we ask for, we get, but we didn't really want it. And why is it that we didn't really want it? Or sometimes, do we even know what we want? We say we want it, but it's not exactly what we want. So I had worked with a fitness trainer, I think maybe only 2 or 3 sessions. And I remember much younger days, when we started the session, she was getting to know me. And so she said, you have to tell me what you want to focus on. We can focus on either strength, losing weight. There was a third one. Can't remember. And, the whole thing usually is, we want to lose weight, we want to lose weight, we want to lose weight. The person even started doing these workouts with me because of this whole talk of losing weight. But when she presented me with this choice of, I have to adjust my routine depending on what you want to focus on, immediately I said strength. And then I thought to myself, like, even I thought maybe I would have said losing weight, but I didn't. I said strength, and I was very sure that's what I wanted. But in general chit chat, when talking, we don't talk about I want to be strong. We talk about I want to lose weight. And of course, that's general chit chat, and we may not pay much attention to it. But what I realized is that, why even say it when that's not actually what I want? Because when it came time to decide, that's not what I wanted. And it was very clear. It was very clear. Like I said, it didn't last long, the whole thing. There's been another incident also, which I remember very clearly, where I would say, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. Should I do this? Should I do that? And this whole whining, I don't know what I want. And then, Gurudev would say, never stay in indecision. And if you need to, flip a coin, and then whatever you get, and just do that. But don't stay in indecision. So I've heard Gurudev say this. I've quoted Gurudev saying this, and then I was in this, I don't know what I want. So it was just major indecision, and I thought, well, this is not good. So here we go. Do it means heads, don't do it means tails. I flipped the coin, and it landed on, I can't remember which one, and I knew without a doubt that's not the one I wanted. It was like suddenly super clear. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the other one. What was that whole drama about? I don't know. Did I really not know? I really felt like I didn't know. But when it came time to choose, it was so clear to me. And so very often now I would recommend to people, flip the coin. Maybe you won't listen to the coin, but you'll be clear on whether you want that or not. What do we really want? Do we even know? And then, why? So Karna chose loyalty to Duryodhana. Why? And whenever we choose something, we pay a cost. This also I spoke about last week, right? Like anything. We choose anything, we pay a cost. Because you're not doing something else, right? And usually, how will we know we want to do something? We're willing to pay the cost. Even recently during COVID, when prices of tickets were, they still crazy. But I remember people were returning from India back to Hong Kong during that time where India was in lockdown and flights were banned, and Hong Kong was, well, we were never quite in lockdown, but you all know it was really bad. And people were stranded there for months together. People were paying something like 40,000 Hong Kong dollars to come back on a flight on economy. When you really want something, you'll just pay. Today, nobody will pay that much to go to India. But if you need to, you haven't seen your family, you're stranded in another country, you'll pay. You'll pay, right? All of us would. Whatever it took. And then if we're not willing to pay, we don't want it. So again, I remember as a kid learning some musical instrument. Again, everybody else was learning it, so you're learning it. Then did I practice? No. Why? Because you're not willing to pay that price. Then you don't get good at it. But I loved dance. Did I invest? Watching, learning, practicing? Totally. Was I willing to pay the price? Totally. So do we even know what we want? And how will we know? We're willing to pay the price. And when we're not willing to pay the price, means we don't want it. No. So, important for us to know what we want. And why? So, what was Karna's thinking? Obligation. Although, to be fair to Karna, I think there was genuine love. Because I don't know him. At the end of it, we all feel like he's a nice guy. How is everybody on the planet thinking he's a nice guy? Well, he got Indra's boon, and now today you'll see when he meets Kunti, he gets a boon from Kunti. What am I saying? Price. Why does he want that? Obligation. So we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a lot about this. Feeling obliged, feeling guilty. What we desire is actually what drives us. I don't know if I've mentioned it in Mahabharata previously, but in psychology, they refer to all our behavior being driven by desire. And so they call it deep driving desires. Of course, Vedanta says the same thing. All our behavior is driven by desires, but this term is nice, no? The Americans have a good way of coining terms. Deep driving desire. And when we don't know what our deep driving desire is, it's a little bit silly, because what we end up doing is self-jeopardizing. So Karna said he wanted to be accepted by society, then jeopardize. So what's the first thing he did? He lied to his guru. He jeopardized. So you say you want it, but you don't really want it. You want something else. And so you jeopardize getting the thing that you say you wanted. And so much time, energy wasted in this whole process, because you actually feel you wanted it and then you don't get it, and then you feel the heartache, but you never wanted it. A little bit messy, no? We end up making our lives. And like in Karna's case, whole lifetime goes in this. It's not like he did it for 1 year. His whole life. Yeah. So when we're working towards things that aren't our deep driving desires, self-jeopardize. And so really important for us to know what they are. Once we know what our deep driving desires are, and they're driving us, so it won't take us long to figure out, because whichever direction you're going in, that's pretty much what's driving you. Then a very important question to ask ourselves is, why? So a lot of people do this. They'll sulk. So their desire is driving them to sulk. What's the desire? Usually to get attention. So here I am sulking. Day 1, day 2, day 3, week 3. Why am I sulking? Because, somebody will finally give me some attention. Poor me. Week 3, if I haven't gotten attention yet, wait a minute. What did I want? Attention. What am I doing to get attention? Sulking. It's not working. But what do I think I want to do? I think I want to sulk. So I keep sulking, but that's not what I want. What I want is attention. Important to know what I want. And then when I'm being driven to do something, why? Why am I being driven to do this? And then we've said this many, many times. Our emotions do not have intelligence. So we need to use intelligence with our emotions. So I'm sulking. Why? To get attention. I'm not getting attention. In fact, people are running away from me because I'm sulking. Use intelligence to get what it is I want, which is attention. Look around. Who's getting all the attention? Then copy what they're doing with intelligence. Usually, they're the cheerful people in the room, the loving people in the room, the affectionate, kind people in the room. Usually, they're the ones getting the attention. Anyone sulking in the room usually gets teased. Like, pay attention. First, I should give attention to what's going on before figuring out how to get the attention. So we will react emotionally to get the things we desire, but the emotion doesn't have the intelligence to help us to get the thing we desire. So we have to use intelligence to get the thing we desire. Karna was very intelligent. He didn't work this out. But he's not alone. Like, really, EQ today is a well-known term. It's a term that means emotional intelligence, but it doesn't mean your emotions have intelligence. It means you're intelligent with emotions. Yeah. Very few people have it. It's not so common. IQ is far more common than EQ. So Karna. Karna is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful example of God gives us what we want. Only for us to figure out, oh, actually, I didn't want that. Yeah, why you bugged him so much? He worked so hard to give you what you wanted, and then you didn't really want it. And then you're saying, God doesn't help me. He doesn't answer my prayers. He doesn't give me what I want. And he's sitting there thinking, hey, Acha, I just gave you everything you wanted. Can't blame me if you're so confused and deluded. Okay, so now what happens? Yeah.
So what did Karna really want? What was his deep drive desire? The law?
What did he ask for?
He wanted to be recognized. He wanted.
Okay. When he met Indra, what did he ask for as a book? You don't remember? I'll tell you. We'll do story now. Kunti can't sleep. The war has been declared. Vidur comes home. Kunti is staying with Vidur and Vidur's wife. Kunti knows Krishna had come because he went to their house. And sometimes when we go back home, whether husband, wife, whether sibling, we do this little rant of how our day went. And this happened and then this happened, and I can't believe this happened. So Vidur was totally doing his rant about how, and then can you believe Duryodhana said this? Like after Krishna showed the Vishwarupa, Duryodhana said this. So Vidur is literally just doing his rant to his wife. Like, I don't know how much I've tried so hard to get through that brother of mine, but he refuses to see. You can just imagine Vidur complaining about like he's blind, but really this is beyond blind. Like, how can he not see? Because he saw the Vishwarupa darshan. And in fact, I don't know if I mentioned this last week. After the Thrashtra sees the Vishwarupa darshan and Vidur comes and speaks to him, and Vidur was like, did you see it? And he's like, yes, wasn't that awesome? I saw it. And then the Thrashtra says, and now I never have to see anything ever again. And Vidur was like, that's what you come up with at the end of seeing the Vishwarupa darshan? Like, weren't you supposed to recognize that if he's God, you should worship him, you should listen to his advice, you should do as you told? No. Just, it was so nice to see, now I don't need to see anything anymore. And so Vidur is like so frustrated with his brother, and he's ranting away about, and I've done my whole life, I've tried for this war not to happen, but of course the war is going to happen, and of course they're all going to die. And so he starts saying, like the Duryodhana's days are numbered, and that Karna, who should really have known better, his days are even less in number, or something to that effect, he says. And Kunti hears it. Kunti hears Vidur say in his rant, Karna is going to die. Of course, the rant was more about the Thrashtra, Duryodhana, but Karna also, he was the one who said for Krishna to be put in jail. And so obviously he was part of the rant. And then he also said a very few arrogant things while the whole conversation was happening. He spoke back to Bhishmacharya, and he accused Dronacharya of being unloyal. And so like he was part of the rant. He was very much part of Vidur's rant, and the word Vidur in his rant said, and Karna is definitely going to die, but they could have all lived if they would just listen. And so Kunti can't sleep. And it's already been really hard for Kunti, because Kunti put Karna in the river and regretted it every single day of her life. And she does this interesting thing, which many people do, whether it be someone like her who turned her back on a loved one, or usually it will be that kind of a scenario, or in that regard. She decides she's going to punish herself, and she will never be happy. And so Kunti has never allowed herself to be happy. And so she had these 5 amazing sons. And sure, 2 of them were Madhvis, but pretty much she brought them up from the start. Madhvi was alive till they were about 16 or so, but they lived all together. And anyone who's lived in a joint family, really, you just one unit. And they incredible human beings. This Yudhishthira is phenomenal. It was, like any mother would be so incredibly proud to have a son like Yudhishthira. Bhim is so affectionate, so affectionate. Again, any mother, when a child is so affectionate. And Arjuna is skilled, but also, again, Arjuna was really loving. So respectful. And all 5 of them, because she actually pampered Nakula and Sahadev as the babies, all 5 of them would have done anything for Kunti. But she didn't allow herself to enjoy them. When she had such incredible children, she didn't allow herself to enjoy them. Why? Because she didn't deserve it, because she had abandoned Karna. So just to recap, when Krishna came and met Karna, and he said, do you know who your mother is? Karna's first words were, a princess gave me up because she was embarrassed, or is probably married with children now and has forgotten about me. Krishna replied, yes, she's a princess. Yes, she was too young, and so society would have been too cruel to her, and she was unmarried, and so she abandoned you. Yes, she is married with 5 sons. She has 5 sons. She has never forgotten about you. So that entire night, Kunti is tossing and turning and tossing and turning. And she thinks, I've never told him. And now he's going to die. And then she's struck with this, I can't let him die. Already I abandoned him. Can't let him die. And so it's well known that every morning Karna goes and prays at the same spot in front of the river to Surya Devata. This is where Kunti goes. Kunti goes and she's standing behind a tree. And the sun does this interesting thing throughout the Mahabharata. It shines brighter on certain people and it hides from certain people. Like, I don't know if this is actually possible, but it's like in the Mahabharata, it's written that at this moment when Kunti has come to see Karna, the sun's angry with her. Like Surya Devata is like, now you turning up. Like, don't bother our son. And so he shines really harsh. And so Kunti's like flinches, or what's the word, from the sun. And interesting that when he's in the river doing his Sandhya Vandan, he had taken out his Angavastra. The Angavastra is that white cloth that they wrap around them. So it was lying under the tree with all his stuff, or where he would come out. So she picks up his Angavastra and uses it as a umbrella to shield her from the sunlight. In other parts also, it's written that the sun won't shine on Arjuna. It's like, I don't like you. I don't know if he can actually do that, but must be, right? They're devatas. Maybe the way we feel it is different, even though it's shining. So Karna comes out of the it's really hard to talk about this scene in the Mahabharata. Karna comes out of the river and he sees this lady under this cloth, and it's his cloth. And he says, who are you? I can't see you, but I feel like I know you. At which point she starts weeping. Like she's probably thought of coming to him so many times, because she thinks about him every single day. And she doesn't know what to say. And she's just crying. And he can't see her yet. And he says, wait, I know you. You're the woman of my dreams. Now, when we hear this phrase, we think of it in such a different way, that she's the woman of his dreams. And then she's still crying. She lowers the cloth and he sees who she is. But he has never seen her before. Because you remember, in those days, women lived in different palaces. Also, Kunti's been living with Vidur. She has seen him many times, but he has never seen her. So he doesn't recognize her. And he talks about how a woman visits him in his dreams very often, and she's always crying. And so again, he says, who are you? And finally, she says, do you really not know who I am? By which stage he's crying. And he's like, I've waited to see you my whole life. And now that you're here, I'm so angry with you. Which we would totally, completely understand. But I'm even more angry. I can't be angry with you. And she says to Karna everything that Krishna says. Come with me. She literally takes his hand and says, come with me. I will tell you this truth, you my son, he will give you the kingdom. And again, he asked, why did you come now? And literally she can't breathe because she's crying so much. And she says, because I don't want to lose you. I don't want you to die. And then Karna says, it's only one thing I want. Let me just lay on your lap. And he puts his head on her lap and she's stroking his head. And her tears are falling on him. And he can actually remember when he's a baby. And he can remember that when she's putting him in the basket, her tears fell on his face. And he says, I recognize your tears. Maybe they were hot, maybe they were warm, maybe I don't know. But he says, I recognize your tears. And then he talks about in the dream, when you come to me, you're always reaching out and you're always crying. And she's crying. And she says that whenever she missed him, she would appear in his dream. Which means Kunti's mind is crazy powerful. To be able to enter somebody's dreams and they be able to remember it. And so she's told him throughout her life and his life that she misses him and she remembers him because he dreamed about her all the time. And that's why she was the woman of his dreams. And so when he has that realization as her tears are falling on him, he says, Mother, I'll take these tears to be the bath that a king would have before his coronation. So before a king is crowned, they do like abhishek of him. And she's literally crying that much that he's bathed in her tears. And she just keeps saying, just let me save you. And then he said, the world will always know me as Radheya. And I couldn't have gotten a better mother than Radheya. But in just this half an hour that I've spent with you, have realized what it's really like to have a mother's love. Now, Radeya was an amazing woman to Karna. She didn't lack in any way. But it's that feeling of this person abandoned me and they love me, and that complete sense of peace that he would have felt, knowing that he wasn't abandoned and that she truly loved him. And then he said, but the world will still always know me as Radeya. And she says, but you are Kaunteya. You are not Radeya. And he said, it's indebted to the parents who brought me up. Let me continue to be known by their names, which is actually another very beautiful thing. Because yes, of course, he's going to love Kunti, she's his mother. But just because he got Kunti, he didn't forget Radeya. Then he asked Kunti for a boon. Because, our parents' blessings, when they're given to us, are very, very powerful. Please never underestimate the blessings from parents, from elders, from Guru. He understood this. Even though he didn't apply a lot of his knowledge, Karna was very knowledgeable. She said, I'll give you whatever you ask for. Again, you should hear first what he's going to say. Please don't follow this thing, this example of, yes, whatever you want, I'll give you. No. May I be remembered well. May I be remembered. 1, 2, well. Fame. What Karna really wanted was fame. It's what he asked Indra for as well. Fame means, so here specifically, it's not notorious. Notorious is when the whole world knows you, but not in a good way. Fame is when the whole world knows you in a good way. The word is yash, yasha. They speak well of you. He wanted fame. That's what he asked Kunti for. And then he says, you're not asking me, but in return, I will grant you a boon. The world has always known you as the mother of 5. The world will continue to know you as the mother of 5. I grant you the boon that I will not hurt the others in battle. I will fight only with Arjuna. And at the end of the war, Mother, you will still have 5 sons. Here he says, either Arjuna or I will live. But if you remember when he spoke to Krishna, he said, I know I will die by Arjuna's hand. So was he saying this here to Kunti because he knew her heart was already so heavy that he's going to die? Or sometimes when we feeling immense comfort or reassurance, or that complete safeness, sometimes we forget. Maybe for a second he himself hopes that maybe he can win. Of course, it's not going to last. The minute Kunti leaves, he's going to remember that he's going to die by Arjuna's hand. Maybe even while Kunti's there, he remembers and he says it for her sake. But it does happen to us, right? It does happen to us in extreme emotions. We don't see clearly anymore, and we can suddenly hope that everything will just suddenly miraculously be fine. But how will suddenly everything be fine if he kills Arjuna? There's no way it's going to all be fine if he kills Arjuna. Her heart would be broken either way, right? At the end of the, I mean, you have two sons working against each other, it's not going to work. Okay. And then Karna tells her, I mean, this actually, if you read this section, I will congratulate you if you don't cry. I struggled finishing this section because it's very hard to read when you cry. And it's a very, very difficult section to read. And so please read it if you want to know the nuances of how beautiful it is. But I have to keep talking. So I've skipped a lot of the conversation. But he ends with saying, Mother, please leave now, for the sun has risen and people will come. And they should not see you with me. This breaks Kunti's heart even further. But this is where you see like these good qualities in Karna. So, Mahabharata time had these interesting rules. So a woman could be with 3 men, but not 4. And then like Veda Vyasa, he could be with 3 women, but not 4. Like, why is one number okay and another one number not okay? I really don't know. But even in today's world, we come up with these weird things, right? Like, it's okay to be married at 18, but not 17. Where do we draw these lines? Like, so today we'll think, of course, it's normal, it's fine. But like maybe 1,000 years from now, we'll think this rule is also very weird. Like, why is it so arbitrary? So Kunti had already publicly known that Kunti had Yudhishthira with Yamdev, and she had Bhim with Pavandev, and then Arjuna with Indradevata. She had already maxed her limit. If people come to know Karna was from Surya Devata, she would have exceeded the limit. And that's, never mind that she had a child out of wedlock before marriage, which would have been a scandal in itself. It would have been that she had been with more than the acceptable number of partners. And that's why he didn't want anyone to see her with him. And so it was this really sweet thing of, you didn't meet me all these years for the sake of your reputation. So now, just, what does it matter? No, let's keep your reputation. But it wasn't wasn't spiteful. It was a really respectful, beautiful sentiment in him. Kunti, poor thing, cries. So if you think of Kunti, the entire Mahabharata, it pretty much sums up Kunti. Kunti cries. When the war ends and they're doing the Shraddhanjali, that means the death rites. The Pandavas were doing all the death rites of all the family members. There was no one left on the Kaurava side. Some of the sons were doing the death rites. Kunti is weeping and tells Yudhishthira, please do the death rites of Karna. Yudhishthira is horrified, looks at his mother and says, why? So before the war was over, Karna fought with Yudhishthira, could have killed Yudhishthira. but didn't. Insulted him royally. He fought with Bhim. He could have killed Bhim. Didn't. Insulted him royally. Fought with Nakula separately on different occasions. He made sure he fought with all of them, huh? He didn't have to, but he deliberately made sure he fought Nakula. He made sure Nakula knew that he could have won and killed him, but he didn't. Again, insulted. Really horribly insulted. Like when you read what all that goes on during the war, yeah, the sweet Karna that you see today, I don't know where he disappears. So mean, so foul his mouth is when he's talking to Nakula and Sahadev, when he fights each of them. And the worst is to Yudhishthira. And so the war's over, Karna's been killed. All four brothers have been majorly insulted by him. And here Kunti is saying, do his death right? Yudhishthira is like, what haven't you told us? Finally, Karna is dead. And Kunti tells the world, he was my firstborn. After all that, finally Kunti tells everyone, Karna was my firstborn. Just do it when you were 16, no? Eventually, one day you're going to have to do it. Eventually, one day you're going to have to face the consequences. What did she do? Waited. It got worse. Now when she has to face the consequences, there's so many more consequences she has to face. Not only does she have to face the fact that she's doing her son's funeral, which is not easy, she's having to face the look on her 5 other children's face. She's still going to have to face society. Just face it to start with. Like really, we learned this from Kunti. Don't bother trying to run away. You're going to have to face it at some point. What was she running away from? People finding out. All of us know. Mahabharata happened 5,000 years ago. We all know. Did it? Kunti's a really interesting person because we can learn so much from her. So the first thing was, we try and run away, but we can't run away. Second thing is, she felt immense guilt. So she abandoned Karna and she felt immense guilt. And because she felt immense guilt, she wanted to punish herself and she refused to be happy. In her head, she didn't deserve to be happy, and so she was punishing herself for what she had done. So remember I said, emotional intelligence is not thinking with your emotions. It's using intelligence with your emotions. Punishing herself. Did it work? Did it make Karna's life better? Did it make her a better person? In fact, it made her a worse person. Because not only did she punish herself, she punished her 5 sons. They never saw their mother happy. How horrible for a child not to see their mother happy. Especially when these kids are amazing, man. You can't have better kids than the Pandavas. And then, like, They always knew they weren't enough for her. Without her ever saying that, all 5 of the Pandavas knew they were not enough for her. Maybe they thought it's because Pandu died. But it was because Karna was in there. So she didn't punish herself. She punished the other kids. So let's look at this emotion of guilt. What is guilt? Guilt is the feeling that I have done something wrong. Guilt is different to shame. What is shame? Also the feeling that I have done something wrong. How are they different? You'll understand how they're different, but hard to explain how they're different, right? Guilt is one of those few very useless emotions. Emotions usually have a purpose. Purpose of fear, to keep me safe. Purpose of anger, to uphold righteousness. Defend when something is wrong. Purpose of jealousy sometimes can become my motivator to help me to improve. There's other ways to be motivated, but chalo. At least it served a purpose. Purpose of guilt, to make me feel it's okay that I did something horrible because I feel guilty about it. What did I do? Something horrible, something not so good. I'm a bad person. No. I did the horrible thing, but I'm not a bad person because I feel guilty about doing it. Is it helping me? Not at all. Does it? So, what should we do? I do something wrong. All of us have, who hasn't? What should we do? Shame might be there. What's shame? Hey, how could I stoop so low? Definitely not proud of myself. Shame also has the feeling of people will now reject me. Guilt doesn't have the feeling of now people will reject me. Guilt has the feeling of maybe I can get away with it. Please notice. Shame, maybe people will regret me. What I did was horrible. Intelligent way of dealing with this now is deal. Completely own the fact that I did this. I lied. I'm sorry. I completely take full responsibility. I lied. I let you down. I cheated. Whatever it is that I did, take complete and full responsibility. I did this. Second, be willing to face the consequences. Kunti had a child out of wedlock. Be willing to face the consequences. Actually, if Kunti had gone to her parents, they might have even figured out something. Kunti herself was adopted, by her father's brother because he wasn't able to have children. They would do that. Even today, they do that. Right? Like that, within the family, somebody could have taken this child. And they would have, within the family, they would have been able to, possibly, potentially. We see that happening with Kunti, right? Because she and Vasudeva are siblings, but Vasudeva grew up in one house and she grew up in another house. But instead of, I have done this, and I am now going to face the consequences of what I do. Instead of doing that, which is the healthy way to do it, the most dharmic way to do it, the best way for me to learn and grow and improve, instead of that, I feel I did this and I feel guilty. And in my feeling of guilty, I don't take responsibility for what I did. And I don't face the consequences. Guilt is another way of running away. Also, just this morning, and that's what really made me think about guilt. Somebody was telling me something good in their life, like when we have privileges, sometimes families that have, are affluent, and then the kids have access to so much. And so he was saying, then I feel really guilty that I have this amazing. And I thought, why guilty? You haven't done anything wrong. And it's like, yeah, but I don't deserve it, whatever it is. And that too, I've noticed, right? That like when I grew up in South Africa and it was white supremacy by law. And now today, I've heard so often that the whites suffer from, what's it called? Complex or guilt from being privileged. So there's this term, white privilege. And white people feel guilty for white privilege. So interesting, no? The rest of us feel inadequate because we're not white, and the white people feel inadequate because they're white. What uselessness we have, man. So when they become aware of the fact that they're privileged just by the, just merely by the color of the skin, they feel really bad about it. You didn't do anything wrong. You were born white. Guilt is when you've done something wrong. Okay, maybe with the white privilege, your ancestor did something wrong. But does it serve any purpose for a white person to feel guilty about being white? It serves a purpose? No, it doesn't. Stop seeing color. Or see color, but just like when we look at flowers, this one's yellow, this one's white, this one's pink, this one's purple, this one's red. Right? When we see people, why can't we just see people? You're still seeing color. We're still judging based on color. Feeling guilty that whatever, rich, white, straight, whatever, is still re-emphasizing the categories. Right? It's still creating distinctions. So we have guilt about doing something wrong. And we have guilt about actually we didn't do anything wrong. Yet we feel we've done something wrong. Why? Why do we feel, why have this emotion of guilt? Because I don't want to take full responsibility of what it is. So, privileged rich kid. I'm enjoying my parents' money. My parents' hard work. I am benefited not because I earned this, just because I'm born into it. Own it. Own that that's what it is. And then if you want to change that, change it. But guilt doesn't make us change. It It's just an excuse. Now, when I say this, it sounds very harsh, and I don't mean to be harsh. But if we're not harsh with ourselves, we don't improve. We'll just keep using guilt as an excuse not to take responsibility. It's hard to feel the emotions we feel. It's hard to feel shame. It's hard to feel inadequate. It's hard to feel I failed. It's only when we actually feel all these emotions that we can raise above them. But if I feel I failed and then I feel guilt, I don't fully take responsibility of that emotion. I don't fully rise above it. So Kunti's life, that's why Kunti's life is so, every character in the Mahabharata we can learn so much from, but really Kunti's life. When we die, what would be the best death? That we have no regrets. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to do anything wrong. We all have done things wrong. Chances are we'll continue doing things wrong. But no regrets means we take responsibility of it. We face the consequences that have to be faced. We do our best to have transformed and grown from that experience. Then when I look back, no regrets. If I stay in guilt at the time of death, there's going to be regrets. There's going to be so much regret. So why did Kunti tell Yudhishthira to do Karna's Shraddhanjali? She finally understood that she didn't want to live in regret and guilt anymore. He had died without the world knowing. She didn't want to die without the world knowing. Also, the boon he asked from her was fame. He's Kunti's son. He died honoring his mother. So, Kunti shows us so much. In the end, we're going to have to face it. Doesn't matter how much we try and run away from it. In the end, we have to face it. Even Karna's life shows us that. He had to face all the curses that came to him. He couldn't run away from it. He had to face the results of all the choices he made. Karna's death is so pitiful. So sad. Every death is sad, but with him it was just so much. Like there was so much helplessness with Karna's death. And he was such a skilled, powerful warrior, yet so incredibly helpless at the point of death, which was one of the curses coming in effect. Yeah. So we can't hide. And so sometimes we live life delaying having to face what we need to face. There's no point. Just face it already. And then something incredible happens. suddenly we are at peace. I'll pause here for today. Any questions? When we have an emotion, check what purpose it's serving. When we have a desire, ask yourself why you desire. This whole process is called introspection. I haven't heard too many other teachers speak about introspection. Gurudev put introspection before meditation. What is introspecting? These things. What am I feeling right now? Guilty. What purpose is it serving? Just making me feel better about myself. No need to feel better about yourself. What you did was wrong. What's the desire that's driving me? Why do I have this desire? What purpose is this desire serving? You know, I've done this introspection. Really, I am so grateful to Gurudev for teaching us this introspection. And there's been times when I'll sit up straighter. I'm already sitting straight because, you know, trying to meditate. I'll sit up even straighter and I'll think, why am I desiring this faltu thing? No need. And I can literally duck the desire then. Not always, but it's really sometimes just asking that question can end the desire. And like I said, sometimes asking the question can help me figure out how to actually get it. Since now I know what it is I'm desiring. So when we have emotions, remember the emotion doesn't have an intelligence. So ask yourself, what purpose it's serving. If it's not serving a purpose, no need for that emotion. Oh, there is a question. Wasn't Karna's search for fame matched by Kunti's desire to protect her reputation? Yeah. Kunti wanted to protect her reputation when she was, I think, what, she was like 16 or something when she had Karna? I can't remember exactly. Of course, they lived much longer than us, so they didn't have them at the ages that we think, but at around about. After that, she had to save her in-laws' reputation. Little bit more complex than Karna just wanting fame. So, not just in the Indian community, I think world over at that period of time, huge pressure from the family that you belong to, especially when a woman being married into another family. A little bit more, I mean, she always had a choice, not that she didn't have a choice, but you feel a little bit more compelled to not disappoint your in-laws family. Yeah.
So, you know how every action has a consequence.
Every action does have a consequence.
And you said guilt is a useless emotion, but could it be seen as a consequence? Because it's like a punishment. You punish yourself.
Is guilt a consequence of an action?
It's like you're choosing your consequence.
I'm choosing my consequence. No, I think guilt's an action, not a consequence. So when I do something wrong, the consequence is going to come. Mm-mm. There's no running away from it. Even guilt is running away from the other emotions, the emotion of shame, the emotion of I failed, the emotion of being able to see clearly the disappointment and hurt on another person's face. But actually, it's really important to completely take responsibility for the hurt we cause other people. Because only then will I stop. And I think I saw this a lot as a psychologist when, people are abused. So whether it be a child that got abused or a wife that got abused, and then the person who is abusing feels guilty, very guilty. Especially you see this when husbands beat wives. So much guilt, so much guilt, so much guilt about, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But they'll beat again. So the guilt's just a escape. Whereas if a husband beats, wives also can be abusive, and if that husband takes full responsibility of what I did was not acceptable, he won't beat again. Because I've seen that as well. Sometimes couples are young and emotions are high, and hot-headed people will do it impulsively. So he hit. Of course, she totally will break down because she's also young, and how could he? Guilt doesn't stop him from hitting again. Taking responsibility will stop him from hitting again. And I've seen men who have hit and then was like, whoa, I don't want to be that person. Take full responsibility, apologize, face it completely acknowledge the pain it caused her, the horror it caused for the whole of the rest of the family, and didn't ever repeat it. And then, of course, all of us have seen, well, maybe not all of us, but I, as a psychologist, definitely saw the ones that felt guilty, so guilty, and then hit again. Guilt's not the consequence. It's an action. It will have a consequence. And the consequence is you don't change, you don't grow. You don't become responsible. Guilt's an excuse. Purpose of guilt, excuse. That's why I said it's a useless emotion. Excuses are no good. No good. All of us say, don't give me excuses. Yet we only come up with such good excuses.
Such a fine line.
It's a fine line.
Between shame and guilt.
Yeah. That's why I asked y'all if y'all know the difference between shame and guilt. In shame, you own it.
You forgive yourself.
You have to forgive yourself. Otherwise, you don't grow. We have to forgive ourselves. We can only forgive ourselves when we take responsibility. We can only let it go when we take responsibility. So. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaಃ, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkhapak bhavet, asatu ma satgamaya, tamasu ma jyotirgamaya, mrityurma amritangamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Hari